Morning. How are you today? Good. Now let us bring our attention deeper to ourselves and let us bring our mind to the state of being open and being humble. And let us prepare ourselves so that we can receive the blessing that God is pouring onto us. And let us make this moment holy, sacred, and also fruitful. Maybe I'll ask you to close your eyes today. And this is one of my meditation practices that I do. Now, check your mind. What's in your mind right now? Right now. What's in your mind? Is that the candle? Is that the chair? Is that the smell? Is that your friend? Is that a concern that you have read in the newspaper, computer? What's in your mind right now? I'm sure you see them. As you find those things that are in your mind and occupying your mind, ask yourself a simple question. Among all this, what really matters to me? What really matters to you? Again, the first question is ask yourself, what's in my mind? What's occupying your attention? What's making you to think right now? And next question you ask is, what really matters? Or does that really matter to me? And if the answer comes to you and saying, yes, this really matters, the last question you ask is, what can I do about this? Again, 3 questions that I'm asking to you to ask yourself. First, what's in my mind? What is occupying my mind right now? And among those things that you identify that's in your mind, you ask again, does that really matter to me? And among the things that your mind tells you, yes, it matters to you, your last question to yourself is, what can I do about that? And with that in your mind, I would like to invite you to have a meditation with music. So you can continue that process, or if you have a certain conclusion, now you simply listen to the music and perhaps you can just dance with the music, or if you like, you can visualize yourself as a winged creature and fly with the music. Okay?
first text today is from Exodus, chapter 7. This is a curious and even slightly comical story at the opening of what we know will be very dramatic and escalating developments in Egypt. What must Pharaoh have thought of Moses and Aaron, these two elderly Midianites, pumpkins? He didn't imprison them. He didn't execute them. He must not have seen them as much of a threat. In this text, the Pharaoh's wizards seem to compete, respectively, with the powers of the God of Moses and Aaron. Let's read the text. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When Pharaoh says to you, 'Perform a wonder,' then you shall say to Aaron, 'Take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake.'" So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did as the Lord had commanded. Aaron threw down his staff before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Then Pharaoh summoned the wise men and the sorcerers, and they also, the magicians of Egypt, did the same by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff, and they became snakes. But Aaron's staff swallowed up theirs. Still, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them as the Lord had said. Then in Matthew chapter 12, before in the verses of Matthew, Jesus had performed some healings. He healed the withered hand of a man in the temple. He healed a deaf mute who was possessed by devils. And the Pharisees found fault with his activities on the Sabbath. Who were the Pharisees? The Pharisees were a religiously and politically influential Jewish sect in Jesus' time. They righteously advocated strict adherence to Jewish law, but they also made deals with the Romans, and they made deals with the puppets, the political puppets appointed by the Romans. So imagine Jerusalem, a cosmopolitan cacophony in the first century of Jesus' time. Markets, hawkers, harlots, Roman officials, simple people in the streets, the gleaming temple, and the righteous Pharisees mincing around, trying desperately to find a way to make a case against Jesus of Nazareth, whom they saw as both a religious threat and a political threat. Jesus evidently holds them in undisguised contempt. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to Jesus, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." Never mind the the healings that had just happened in the days before. But he answered them, "An evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For just as Jonah was for 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the sea monster, so for 3 days and 3 nights the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth. The people of Nineveh will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the proclamation of Jonah, and see, something greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because she came from the ends of the earth to listen to the wisdom of Solomon, and see, something greater than Solomon is here."
So I was opening with you with those questions because the most important thing about being a human is ability to know myself and really understand about myself. I am not sure how many other animals would go and sit and reflect upon, why did I choose to hunt this rabbit versus a squirrel? Or why do I like to do this or not that? In a way, we have that ability. And even we go further into self-examination to even self-improvement. And yet, what Swedenborg, the 18th century visionary and mystic, shares with us is that our mind is like, I don't know what's the best. These days, probably a smartphone. Yeah, our mind is like a smartphone, meaning it has all kind of apps in it. By a fingertip, you can connect to anything that is virtually available, meaning all these things are flooding into you, like into our little small device we call smartphones. And at your fingertip, well, as long as you have connection, you can get into anything that you like to search and find. And sometimes those things are not very helpful to you. And have you ever found yourself like, why am I keep reading this?
I've noticed that.
You know? Or like, why am I keep paying attention to this social network thing? It happens. It consumes not only your time, but your energy, but also what it's doing is that it is training you to be more addicted to that. Because human beings are very interesting beings, that more you do in a certain way, it becomes a habit to you. And when you are not doing that, you miss it. And sometimes, even if you know it's not a healthy thing, you miss it. And not doing it could create some kind of vacuum in your heart, in your mind. And doing it feels like satisfying. But then, right after that, you regret. So sometimes some people live in that cycle. Now, why are we so complicated? Swedenborg's answer is this, that into our mind, we receive all inspirations and whispers from both heaven and hell. So all the good spirits in heaven are inspiring us to do good things. At the same time, all these selfish spirits in hell are tricking us, whispering us to do all the bad things, or things that they excite them. In a way, but it's not about like targeting personally. According to Swedenborg again, these spirits do not know it is indeed Joshua Jennings they're talking to. that they don't know that. They are just inspiring, in a way, sending their energy, just like what is received into our smartphones. Right? All these apps and all these things that is coming to it, they're not really targeting you per se, but people like you. Try to attract you, try to entice you, try to seduce you, so that you keep on clicking that. And similar way, these spirits are, that's the word is emanating probably, their energy, their power toward human spirits. Good ones for the good excitement, and selfish ones for the selfish excitement. And that's why we have all kind of very confusing, sometimes confronting two different thoughts. Like, have you ever had this experience of like, I want to do this. No, I hate to do this. No, actually, I need to do this. No, I don't want to do this. I mean, I had that experience too. Like, I have to do this, but I hate it at the same time. But I know I need to do it. So what's the choice? Right? At the end, you got to make a choice because you can do only one action at a time. You cannot do both good and evil action same time. It doesn't work like that. So at the end, we all need to make a choice. And today's scripture reading, it is very complex and it goes deeper stories in all over. But essentially speaking, it talks about, in a very simple way, our self-centeredness and arrogance about rejecting the deeper message that is from God. Simply saying, God, you gotta prove it. You gotta prove it to myself that you are indeed God. And after you prove it to me, I'll think about it. And sometimes that's the attitude. Pharisees are, the name itself is pure ones. That's how they call themselves. Right? Name itself tells a lot, isn't it? They are the pure ones. When you say that, what does that mean then? What's other people? Other people are not pure. That's how it goes. That's how in ancient Taoism teaches about human classification and categorization. That when you say these are diligent people, that means what? The rest of them are not diligent. So whenever you define things like that and value judgment, either you intend it or not, you are actually making two different things. You're never making one. So that's kind of hardness about it. So these Pharisees call themselves were the pure ones. Meaning, all the rest of you are not pure. Then what does that mean? You have to follow me. You have to follow us. You have to listen to our teachings. And they created all kind of regulations and traditions in such a way that people are, in a way, suffering to follow that. And Jesus was very, very against it. And that's why he intentionally performed those miracles on the day of Sabbath. Now, if you really read Old Testament, let's say what Moses brought to them as the law of Sabbath, you know what that was? Have Sabbath holy. And do not labor. Labor means that you do not work in the field. That's it, actually. That's all that God says. And take that day a resting day, remembering the blessings that God has given to you, and keep it holy. Holy means keep it different. The word for holy in Hebrew means different. Different. We call it translation holy, and we have like all aura around it. But actual Hebrew word is something that is separated, different. So different from what? Different from our regular daily activity. And yes, that's what it means to be holy. That's what God told them. And Jesus was doing something holy, curing people. What's wrong with that? And Jesus' accusation was what? If you have a lamb or a cow or a bull that fell into a dry well, wouldn't you go and rescue it on a Sabbath day? They will do that. What about they were walking and then a bag of their gold dropped into a deep well? Don't you think they'll go down and grab it out? In their context, that's a work too. So they meticulously made these rules so restricting and limiting to the point that almost like micromanaging everybody's life. That's what they did. And Jesus was saying, no. So, going back to the first questions that I kind of suggested to you. At any given moment, we have things that occupy our mind. And unless you really pay attention to what's occupying your mind, you may let it occupy it and even govern your mind for that moment or even days. A simple way of rearranging your mind is ask these questions. Does that really matter to me? Does it? And we have whole budget issues in the Capitol Hill. Does that really matter to you? Yeah, we have a whole pandemic that is all over the world, but the whole global scale, does that really matter to you? I mean, it could or it could not. And the next question among those things that we feel that it really matters to me, the next question is, what can I do about that? You only have 24 hours a day, 2 arms, 2 legs, if you're healthy, and that's it. And among 24 hours, you need to use about 8 hours to sleep, and about 3 to 5 hours to eat, and maybe 2-3 hours for other things. How many hours do you actually have left out? And then if you're working and doing other things, those hours also need to be done for that. So, the ancient advice from both actually Zen masters and Taoism, be present means, in a very complex way, but be focused on the things that you are doing at that moment. And do not divide your mind for other things that you're not doing right now. Because then you're not very effective. Either way. I mean, there's all called multitasking that works for certain things, but certain things, multitasking doesn't work. And certain things, it's better to have all your mind present right there. For instance, when you're talking to your friends or your family or listening to your child, you need to be there fully and actually listen. And also actually share. Because you know and the person you're talking to knows if you're not fully there. Then what happens? There is a little damage in that relationship. Then a little more damage next time. Then when it goes on, what happens? Relationship breaks. That's just one example. It could apply to your work, anything else. So, ancient wisdoms that we have accumulated all shared to us. Yes, our mind has so many things coming into it at once. Yeah, try to sort them out and pick one to process at each time. And when it matters, try to actually execute that one that you chose. All right? So with that, I'd like to invite you with reflection with music. Well, this time, why don't we have a little stretching ourselves? Maybe move your body a little bit. Yes. And let us take a deep breath. Deep breath and let it go. And let us do it 3 more times and recenter and refocus ourselves. Take a deep breath and let it go slowly. And take another deep breath and then let it go gently. And take another deep breath and let it go very slowly. And keep your eyes closed. Now let us listen to the sound of this old gong and let us be reminded of this timeless theme about emptying of ourselves. Now let us take a moment of silent reflection, going back to the very first question again. What's in your mind? What is occupying your mind right now? And let us simply observe that without any other questions. May you be blessed by a life in which you are blessing to others. May you be loved by a life in which you are loving others. And may God's presence of love and wisdom be with you always. Amen.